Hello and welcome. My name is Alex Barrett, and I am presenting on behalf of my colleagues Austin Pack, Ethan Quaid, and Lipang Zhou. Our presentation is about virtual reality in language learning. When virtual reality first came to our attention as a potential instructional technology, we had a few questions about it. For example, we asked ourselves, is this technology useful for learners and for teachers? Is it something that can help them achieve their learning goals? We also asked, is this technology easy to use? We know that technology that is very cumbersome or complex is unlikely to be successfully adopted for learning purposes. We also asked, is this something that students can use without help? Can they use it autonomously? Or does it require some kind of special training or supervision? Beyond that, we are also curious about the content of the virtual learning environments themselves. Like, do students want to engage with the content of the virtual environment? And does that influence their decision to want to adopt and use virtual reality in the future? What this is pertaining to is the antecedent conditions of the learner, the ACL. And basically that means that whenever a student encounters a new situation or a new technology, they always have some pre-existing attitude or opinion or expectation. And we wanted to take that into account. So based on these questions, we developed some hypotheses. Okay? And we decided that if a student can use the technology autonomously without special kind of training, or they would find it easier to use. We also thought that the student's attitude towards the learning content of the VR program, their antecedent conditions towards the learning content, will impact how useful that they think that technology is. And we took those two things, the easier to use and how useful it is, and we feel that those two things will influence directly a student's intention to adopt the technology for learning purposes. So we organized these into a conceptual model based on the technology acceptance theory by Davis. And right in the middle, the original model starts with perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use, so how useful it is, how easy it is to use. And those things influence directly the behavioral intention to use the technology. So which predicts the adoption of VR technology as an instructional tool. We also had the perceived self-efficacy, so how easy it is to use on your own without special kind of instruction or guidance, the autonomy, influencing the perceived ease of use. And then the ACL, based on an earlier exploratory study where we noticed a correlation between participants' enthusiasm for the learning content and how likely they were to adopt it. And so we feel that ACLs probably influence the perceived usefulness of a technology. Let me give you a little bit of background about virtual reality technology. So you can think of virtual reality as being on different points of a spectrum of immersion. The term virtual reality can be used to describe three-dimensional graphics that you can interact with on a desktop computer, or on the higher end of the spectrum, head-mounted display units, which completely occlude the real world and give you a very immersive and interactive experience. There have been many studies that have used very similar models to ours and very similar techniques of analysis. For example, Huang and her colleagues in Taiwan have done these type of studies usually with lower immersion virtual reality, desktop VR or projection-based VR. However, our study wants to focus on the other end of the spectrum, the head-mounted display units that have a very high sense of immersion. Our virtual reality learning environment was specifically designed for for learning. Okay, so this was not a commercial product or a game or something that we adapted. This is something that we created for a single academic task having to do with paragraph structure. And it had varying degrees of difficulty so that it was accessible to a wider range of students. You can see in the photograph there, our colleague Li Tong is conducting one of the one-on-one sessions with a participant, and she's watching the television screen, which displays everything that the participant is seeing inside that, that virtual reality learning environment. And so she's able to kind of guide him or assist him throughout the process. The virtual reality learning environment, like I said, it is high immersion. So it is intended to be used with a head-mounted display, and that gives you the feeling of being in a different place. You have virtual hands that you can use to point and click. You can see the little kind of lightsaber cursor that he's using to select menu options there. And the program is basically a collection of paragraphs of different difficulty. And this task for the student is to read the paragraph and then paint each sentence according to that sentence's function in the paragraph. So there are different colors of paint on the table in front of him. There's blue for a topic sentence, pink for a supporting idea, supporting detail, conclusion sentence, and so forth. So what he'll do is he'll select a color paint and then apply it to a sentence in the paragraph that he thinks is appropriate. So blue for topic sentence there. He'll read the next sentence and apply another color of paint, and doing so kind of get an idea of what each sentence's function is within that paragraph. So that is the task of the program. We took 133 undergraduate participants from a university in mainland China. They were all first-year students. They were all taking an intensive EAP, English for Academic Purposes course. We gave them each one-on-one sessions with the virtual reality learning environment. The sessions lasted for an average of 12 minutes. And then afterwards, they took a paper and pencil questionnaire. We collected all that data, and then we analyzed it in a structural equation model. The questionnaire itself, aside from demographic items, had about 20 items for the constructs that we were looking to measure, 4 correlated items for each construct. And it ended up being highly agreeable. You can see from the Chromebox Alpha table there that each of the constructs ended up with an agreement level of at least 0.8, which is quite nice. We're excited about that. And the construct validity also met the ideal thresholds benchmarks for the HDMT confidence intervals and the BIF values as well. So each of the constructs seemed to be measuring something unique and seemed to be measuring something that we wanted it to measure, and we felt confident to go ahead with our analysis. So the questionnaire was a Likert scale, 7-point Likert scale, from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And you can see here, these are the averages for each of the constructs. And they mostly fell between 5 and 6. And so, fairly agreeable there, which is quite nice to see. Of note, self-efficacy was the highest. Usefulness was the lowest, but everything fairly close in level. But to get on to the more interesting results here is the model that we used. And let me give my laser pointer to kind of specify here. We'll go through some of these. Starting on the outside, we had the antecedent conditions of the learner. So their attitudes and opinions about learning English for academic purposes and writing structure. And that had a kind of on the cusp of weak to moderate, but also not significant influence. I think the p-value was a 0.08, so not quite there. And it didn't seem to influence very much the perceived usefulness. Perceived self-efficacy, on the other hand, had a nice sized impact and a significant impact on the perceived ease of use. The perceived ease of use impacted perceived usefulness at 0.399 significantly, but it did not impact significantly the intention to use. In fact, it was quite low, 0.079. However, perceived usefulness carried a very high impact on the behavioral intention to use virtual reality, 0.733, and that was highly significant. So that was interesting to see as well. The effect size for that inside model there it seemed to explain 59% of the variance, which is quite high, especially considering that these are psychological constructs. We were happy to have that number there. The outside model effect sizes were 0.25 and 0.22, and so also pretty good considering that there's only one influencing variable there, but obviously only explaining a quarter of the variance. So what does this all mean? We want to make two salient points based on those results. Firstly is that the perceived usefulness but not perceived ease of use was a predictor of intention to use. And why is that, right? Obviously, students who felt that, yes, this technology can help us in achieving our learning goals would much more likely to want to use that technology again in the future. But perceived ease of use had no effect on it, which was interesting. So it didn't matter to them whether the VR was extremely easy for them to use, or if it was very difficult for them to use. It didn't seem to have an impact either way. And I think that's because for a few reasons. One is that students typically have they get introduced to new technologies a lot. They probably understand intuitively that technology, there's a learning curve with new technologies like VR, and so they probably didn't really think that, oh, this is cumbersome, this is complex or not, and that is going to determine whether I want to use this again. They just kind of saw through that, yes, this technology is useful for learning, or perhaps it's a novel thing, or perhaps it's a playful thing, we don't know, but usefulness seemed to be the most prominent construct that influenced the behavioral intention to use. Also, if you remember the descriptive statistics, the self-efficacy construct scored highest in the agreement level compared to the others, and therefore maybe students just felt, yeah, this is something that I can do by myself, and that wasn't wasn't an influence on their intention to use it in the future. And secondly, the antecedent conditions of the learner, their attitudes and opinions towards English for academic purposes, had a weak and insignificant effect on the perceived usefulness. So that it wasn't the content of the program that made them feel that this was a useful technology. So I think that was quite interesting and probably deserves a little bit of future study. But primarily, we're very curious, what is it about VR that enables this sense of usefulness in accomplishing educational goals? Is it some particular quality of the virtual reality technology? Maybe it's immersive quality, or its interactive quality, or something else, perhaps. Is it a novelty effect or a sense of playfulness? We don't know. So we'd like to continue research in that direction. I think this study has helped confirm aspects of VR adoption for language learning purposes, and it also helps to demonstrate what aspects of the technology carry little weight in learners' intention to adopt it. And so we felt happy to be able to share this research with you guys. These are a list of the references that we cited in this presentation, so feel free to pause and browse those if you would like. But that is it. It was an honor and a pleasure to share this research with the EuroCALL community. And if you have any questions or comments or want to get in touch with us, you can post those below or contact us by email. We'd be happy to hear from you.